Hello, this is Chris Arnone again, second year Master of Fine Arts student at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I'm a creative writer of fiction and poetry. I'm also the secretary of the Nu Theta chapter of Sigma Tau Delta, the English Honor Society. And I'm back with another quarantine read. This time, volume 3 of The Wicked and the Divine. If you missed the earlier ones, I've been doing these in sequence. You can find my videos for volume 1 and volume 2. Now we're going into volume 3. Again, the writer is Kieran Gillen. The artist is Jamie McKelvey, with a few guests. The colorist is Matthew Wilson, and Clayton Cowles is the letterer. Always important to list all the contributors on a graphic novel or comic book. Those of you who are maybe writing papers on such, remember it is not just a writer like it is with a novel or a poem. It is a collaboration of several artists together. So this time we're getting into issues 23 through 33. That's what's in this deluxe edition. So it starts off with issue 23 is set up like a magazine interview. So there are some images that are sort of, again, they're drawn, but they're made to look like still portraits with this interview. And it's very sort of Rolling Stone or the Atlantic style. They're long form interviews. So it's not just, QA, but really it gets into the whole he sat down at a checkered table that resembled more of an ancient chessboard or that kind of thing, where it's not just recounting the questions and answers, but recounting the entire experience of the interview, the body language, everything that was there. It's really cool and really well done. So there are interviews there with Morrigan, Bale, Woden, Lucifer, and Amaterasu. From that point, starting with issue 24, it rolls into the third major arc of The Wicked and the Divine, which I can pretty much not discuss at all without getting into spoilers. I tried to stay completely spoiler-free in my first two, but now we're more than halfway through. So, right now, I'm not going to do it, but later there will be spoilers. For now, I'm going to move on and talk about the bonus materials. As always, with these deluxe editions, there's bonus material at the back. So once again, we have a cover gallery, which is really cool. I enjoy flipping through those. There's also this artist making up from Jamie McKelvey. It's not focused on one image or even one issue, but delves into a few different images from different issues during the arc, and him just sort of talking about the process and what he was thinking and what went into it. It's pretty cool, especially if you're an art person. And then the final thing is there are detailed writer's notes on every issue in the run. So this isn't like the script. This isn't, say, a back and forth between Jamie and Kieran. This is more like a post-mortem. It's like Kieran Gillen went and looked back at all of these and wrote up some notes about what went into his process. And as a writer, that was really cool for me to read. I've enjoyed seeing the scripts, but also now this sort of making of these detailed writer's notes. Those are really cool for me. So what about themes? Again, this is Sigma Tau Delta, the English Honor Society, so I want to get a little, academic with it. But in terms of themes, just like some other things I wanted to talk about, I really can't do it without getting really spoilery. So again, hold that thought. We'll come back to themes later, and I'll move on to the review section. So that first issue definitely slowed things down a bit, that interview style. Comic books, graphic novels, they tend to be a quick read. I like to spend some time really looking at the art, but I still find it reads faster than, say, a novel. So it was a nice change of pace. It was so well written, like those long-form interviews from Rolling Stone or The Atlantic, that I just wanted to live in that prose for a little while. It was nice. After that, I have to admit, the book got a little scattered compared to where it's been in volumes 1 and volume 2. There is a new status quo. I said at the end of the last video that volume 2 ends where you're just like, oh my God, where does this even go from here? Well, now we're getting the answer to that question. And really it feels like they're trying to put pieces into place for what is going to be the final act of The Wicked and the Divine. It's an advantage knowing that there are exactly 4 volumes and that it is over at this point. So knowing, after volume 3, we're heading into the final stretch. So there's some relationship shuffling, not just romantic, but all of the interpersonal relationships between these gods are sort of shuffling around. Some big character revelations, and oh my God, these gods are so petty. There are times where it was a little frustrating for me, just like, oh, can't any of you be the grown-up in the room? But, you know, you deal with these old gods and these pantheons, they were petty. That's part of the appeal, so you have to play into that. I have to admit, I wasn't quite as excited by the end of this volume as I was with 1 or 2, but it has definitely left me eager for what happens in the 4th and final volume. I also love how the bonus material, aside from the cover gallery always being there, has been different for each volume. It's given me something different to read through, different to look over. It's been really cool. So now is the time. Spoilers are ahead. Now is the time to switch, hit pause, stop, watch a different video, do something else if you have not read Volume 3 and you despise spoilers like I do. Because I hate them. Okay. Now, spoilers. In 3, 2, 1. The third arc brings to us a world without Arnone, because Persephone murdered her at the end of the 2nd volume. So now it's the gods trying to find their own hierarchy, helping them really come into their own. And I have to say, this had to happen. It's one of those things you don't maybe realize as you're going through it, but then you realize, of course. It's like, and here's a 20-year-old or so spoiler, Dumbledore's death in the Harry Potter series. Of course, the sage had to die so that the younger characters could sort of find their own footing and advance. And it's the same here. We have this crone archetype. She leads all the gods. She's the one that they look to, sort of their de facto leader, and now she's gone. So the gods have to manage on their own. They have to come into their own much more clearly, which is great. And now I'm about to get extra spoilery. This was the thing I didn't really see coming. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Not all of these gods are who they say they are. So the first one we find out about is Baphomet, who in fact is Nurgle, which is kind of a similar god, different pantheon, except of course Baphomet doesn't really exist unless you think Aleister Crowley was a prophet. So it kind of makes sense that Baphomet isn't actually Baphomet. He just didn't want to be called Nurgle because it sounds like Nurgle. So it's pure vanity that he decided to go by Baphomet instead. And it really gets into the whole, like, there are so many different pantheons of gods and so much overlap that so many of them could pretend to be different gods and completely get away with it. Another big surprising one we have is Woden, which this one was all so complicated that basically Woden is not Woden. Woden is not a god at all. It's John, and his son is Mimir. Basically, the son has sort of an Asperger's thing, and while he is Mimir and he has all this potential, Arnone was also afraid that he would give away the whole game because of the sort of lack of a filter that comes with Asperger's. And so John, the father, is pretending to be Woden while controlling his son, who is Mimir, and it's a whole thing. Like, it's kind of crazy and wild. So that was a big thing. And the biggest one of all is that Minerva, the sweet, childlike 12, 13-year-old, is actually a Arnone? That's what she's saying. It makes me wonder if that big machine at the end of Volume 2 transferred consciousness or something. I'm sure it'll get answered in Volume 4, but it was just a what? And then an even bigger what at the end, the final page. The heads. I don't even need to go any more detail. Like, you just... If you haven't read it, you'll be like, what's he talking about? If you have read it, you'll be like, yes, right, what? Yeah. But also, it's so exciting that those characters, maybe they still get to be in this book, even if it's just a little bit. And it's also made me wondering, is anybody really dead? I don't know now. Now I'm questioning everything that I've seen up to this point. Yeah. So, to themes. As I said, this is Sigma Tau Delta. We want to talk about themes. We want to have a little academic stuff to this. So, themes. First off, everyone lies. And it goes back to almost the beginning with the Morrigan covering for Baphomet. Baphomet was lying. Morrigan was lying. Everybody lies. And I think there's a thing in fiction where at first blush, we take everything everyone says as truth until a wrench is thrown in there, something that makes us wonder, and then we question everything. So now, again, questioning everything, everyone. Are any of them who they say they are? Are any of them being honest with each other or with themselves? And this is still pushing this idea of good and evil, not even a versus, but more of a, is there any way to pull them apart? Because people are multitudes, and messing with our perceptions and beliefs regarding good and evil. For instance, Morrigan was one of my favorites, and it winds up that she's actually really abusive and sort of horrible. Minerva, who we thought was a sweet and innocent kid, god of wisdom, is actually maybe the potential big bad of the whole thing. Baphomet seemed like he was the villain at the beginning, and in fact now he is the abused. He is stuck in this terrible codependent relationship with Morrigan. It's horrible. Now you just feel bad for him. And Laura, who was our protagonist, who is this depressed kid, is now Persephone, is the destroyer. Maybe she's the big bad. So yeah, everything is up in the air. Everything is debatable. Good, evil, do those even exist? What are they? And can we really point at anyone as being one or the other? I think that's really sort of the core theme of the wicked and the divine, even given that title, the wicked and the divine. It's not or the divine, it's and. So there you go. So in parting, again, I will tell you, please support your local bookstores. I bought volume 4 of this from Wise Blood Booksellers here in Kansas City, which sparked me making this whole video series and the full reread from the beginning. Also, please support your local comic book stores. They're going through a hard time right now. In fact, one way you can help support them, even if your local comic book store is closed and not selling books at all, right now, a lot of comic book creators are on Twitter auctioning off things like scripts, art, lessons, all sorts of things using the hashtag creators4comics. So if you search that, you can find all kinds of amazing things that comic book creators are producing and auctioning off to donate to local comic book stores to help them survive all these closures and everything that's going on right now. It's really hard for everyone. Of course, if you're also suffering, you got to take care of yourself too. But if you have the privilege to help, to spare some change, to do anything, please do. Those local shops are really struggling right now, and they need us. Again, I'm Chris Arnone at UMKC, the Nu Theta chapter of Sigma Tau Delta. If you're a college student and you love books, find your local Sigma Tau Delta chapter and join. You don't have to be an English major. You just have to love English and books, graphic novel, all of that stuff. If you love it, join your chapter, do some cool bookish things. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you for the final Volume 4 real soon.